Guatemala is a wonderful country, and this week we have tasty coffee and a history lesson on the Mayan Queshy. My name is Steve Layton, and I travel the world finding amazing and delicious coffee for you to drink at home. Some make coffee difficult to understand and complicated, but here it's my job to make it easy and fun and tell you what's in my mug. So this week we're off to Guatemala and La Soledad. La Soledad is owned by the Perez family, but I've probably got to know Raul Perez the best. And he's grown up around coffee. He's a fifth generation coffee farmer, and his family are all involved in the production. His father's side is fifth, and I think its mother's side it's three. So the family have a long history. La Soledad has been part of the Perez family since 1895. Located in Acatenango, very, very near to the Acatenango volcano. Has a great microclimate, an altitude of around about 1,650 metres above sea level, and has very different parts to the farm. The Perez family have been heavily investing in the mill, rebuilding it with the environment in mind. They have a clever system in which they're able to recycle water to use for processing many times. And Raul and his dad, Heno, work together on the farm to raise quality standards every day. They built a cupping lab and a roasting lab on the farm. Raul roasts all the samples of every day's pickings and cups and sees what they can learn at farm level. He's also a qualified Q grader, which means that he has some skills that he's able to find that quality out of there. Out of all of our lots from La Soledad this year, this one is a dry fermentation washed coffee. And that means the cherries have been picked and depulped and then stored in tanks where a natural fermentation breaks down the fruit and the fruit mucilage. Once fermentation is complete, the mesoscarp tissue of the fruit, it degrades quickly and detaches from the seeds, and then it's washed in water to make sure it's all separated and all the fruit is taken away. The fermentation process plays a key part in developing the flavours to make the coffee something special and super interesting and complex. Part of the bean's journey from the plant to us is working with the Perez family and exploring, experimenting in ways that we haven't seen. This is a Catuai lot and was actually fermented for 67 hours. They've been trying different times and different levels just to see what it is and what the quality is. And this was one that stood out to Raul and stood out to us. So I'm going to try and do my best here, but I've got a little bit of a cold coming, so my snozzer in the bowl may not be as good as it normally is. But luckily I know this coffee quite well. So this really, for me, just smells like milk chocolate. And there's a little bit like a biscuit sweetness, but it just smells super sweet. And I want you to do this at home. I want you to take 5-10 grams of the coffee and just put it in something where you can really get your nose in and just smell. And it really gives you a precursor of what's going to come in the cup. So this week I'm going to talk about something that is nothing to do with coffee. It's kind of fun, isn't it? Why not? So I'm going to focus on the indigenous Mayan Queshy communities that live in northeastern Guatemala and have been really quite neglected by the government in past years. Tend to have temporary jobs, health services that get provided by the banana and palm oil companies that have expanded in the Palochic Valley over the last couple of decades. The plantations that they used to have been replaced by cattle ranches and has exacerbated the struggle for land rights and dividing the kind of people who are employed and people who want to be subsistence farmers. The subsistence farmers mainly grow maize and beans, and the land provides life, food and medicine, as well as shelter. And without it, there is little connection for them to the spiritual world, that they have a real strong belief in the land. And the Queshy have been struggling for land rights since the late 19th century, when their ancestral lands started being privatised. And 80% of the country's indigenous people live in poverty, compared to 60% of the general population. So there are some real struggles there. The indigenous people have always been seen as cheap labour, and this perception still is to this day. and even the chair of United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues has been kind of involved, and they've been seen as a tool just to kind of manage the land, which has been a real negative. Why am I talking about this? Well, I kind of think it's important that we kind of think about where our coffees come from, and not necessarily just always talk about the coffee, but think about the people surrounding it and who kind of have lived there forever. So that's my little bit on that. So the La Soledad, I love it that we can get down to 68 hours fermentation time. When you can get that kind of information from a producer, you know that they're measuring everything. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a quaffer. And by quaffer, I mean a coffee that you can just sit and drink and not have to think about too much. And what I expect from it and what I'm getting from it is a milk chocolate kind of smooth, balanced. It has a really distinctive sweetness, and a cuppy note that I've used for this is you can get malted milk biscuits that have chocolate on. Like, I couldn't have them as a kid because the chocolate ones were too expensive. But, you know, the ones with the little printed animals on them and stuff like that, it tastes like one of those with covered in milk chocolate. And it's just super sweet and super drinkable. A delicious coffee that I'm confident that 98% of you on In My Mug are going to absolutely go, yeah, that's great. And 2% of you are going to go, it's not complex enough, but you'll enjoy it anyway. Thank you for joining me. Please do come back. Without you, I'm a madman talking to myself. But do remember, life is too short for bad coffee.
Cool.